what's been most helpful about hearing other women's stories is that women who are contributing to us, to the midst, are so transparent and thoughtful. And it's delightfully surprising sometimes, like how much detail some of these women will share about their stories. And so that encourages me to then be transparent and share some of this. Not everything is beautiful in midlife, right? There's challenges we have to overcome, and so it's encouraging me to share more too.
Hello and welcome to Rediscovering Connection. I am Shelley Doyle and I'm here today with Amy Schroeder, founder of The Midst, which is an online magazine geared for people who are not just rolling into middle age, but really rocking into middle age with some really cool features and contributors. It's been on my radar since a friend of mine called Jo Fiddy was featured as a midst her profile. She's a coach from the UK, now living in Munich, Germany. Hello, Jo Fiddy. So I've been reading The Midst regularly. I get all their newsletters, and just a big fan. It's like, yeah, we're kind of shaping a different path for middle age, and I'm excited to kind of be in this like kind of crew, thinking that this is the time of our lives. So yeah, really big welcome to Amy. Thank you so much for being here with me this morning.
Thank you, Shelley, and thanks for reading The Midst.
Yeah, pleasure. So, the podcast is all about rediscovering connection. So, what I love to do is speak to guests who have found new ways to rediscover connection in their own lives and in the lives of people that they really resonate with. So, I imagine you to be someone that, you conceptualize the idea of this online magazine and now it's all coming to fruition. Like, how has it changed the way that you connect to people that you totally vibe with?
I started The Midst as something else. There's a little bit of story to this. I started as a personal blog called Jumble and Flow. This was, 5 years ago. And at that time, I was in my early 40s. I'm 48 now. And I was writing about my frustrations with perimenopause and the inability to get a proper diagnosis from my doctor, or just any recognition from several doctors actually that I was in perimenopause. So I started just writing about my experience. And when I did that, I started sharing it on my social media, and suddenly lots of women around my age were saying, "Me too. I'm going through similar symptoms and frustrations, and I don't know what to do. Help, help, help." So that's really how it started. And after writing, about perimenopause for a little bit, people started reaching out to me and saying, "Can I contribute my story too?" And I said, "Absolutely." And from there, we expanded to not just cover perimenopause, but lots of modern midlife experiences, ranging from, job changes and raising kids, or deciding not to have kids, family um, situations, and personal relationships, etc. And as part of that evolution of just having many voices, creating sort of a collective of voices, then that's when I'm like, we're in the midst of so much right now. This midlife experience is not my mom's middle age. We're redefining what middle age means now. And that's where I decided to change the name to The Midst. And we officially launched as The Midst, like sort of bigger, better, in January 2024. And, through that experience and just from hearing from so many women who read us, but also write for us, um, I've just, my outlook on middle age is definitely, much more than my mom's middle age now. And I'm excited. And, I remember when I first started writing, it was about being in my 40s. And now here I am on the eve of turning 50 in a couple of years. And I feel confident. I feel ready.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Mhm.
always think of lifespan. Like I think we could be living to we're 100. Comfortably, we could be living to we're 100 these days. And I think of my life then, I'm like, I'm not even halfway. And then I
Mhm.
look at my children who are 6 and 8, and I'm like, they are babies. Like they are so like at the very, very beginning of their life. And I think a lot of the time we expect a lot from our kids, and it's like they are so small and little. So having that perspective, I think really shifts things. Another thing I've heard recently is that so you have your childhood up until you're about 20, and then you have your adulthood, but you're still children. So we're currently in our 20s of adulthood. And I'm like, oh, that's a shift.
Interesting. I haven't
Yeah.
heard it said that way yet, but I like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and middle age, to your point, right? If we could live to be 100, and that's sort of one of our goals at the Myths is to think about how to live our, healthy, fulfilling lives so that we can live longer. When we think about it, living longer, it makes me realize that middle age is probably the lengthiest period of our lives, right? There's all different connotations and definitions of midlife, and it's open to interpretation, but we're kind of looking at it as around 40, starting at around 40, and it could go up to, some people think of like into their mid late 60s as
Yeah.
being still in midlife. So, I mean, if you think about that, that's like a big chunk of your life.
And that's an intriguing perspective because I think of my mum, who is a young mum. She's now only in her mid 60s. So actually, we're kind of at a similar stage, even though I've got little children, so it's a different life. But yeah, we're cruising the midlife together, actually. I understand you have been in journalism throughout your life. I wonder if you just want to walk me through just a little bit of that journalistic journey.
I started at an early age. I started my first fanzine, if you will, when I was in, like 12 or something. But I really got my journalism career started when I was in college at Michigan State University at age 19. I started a publication called Venus about women in the arts and creative culture. And I built that organically, bootstrapped it with very small budget and grew it into an internationally distributed publication. After doing it for nearly 10 years, I ended up selling the publication to a bigger publisher in Chicago. And I stayed on working with the original publishers for a couple of years. And then I stopped doing it for about a decade and worked for other bigger publishers and other companies in content. So I kind of feel like the midst is kind of a continuation of what I had started a long time ago. A lot of the people that I met through that experience now are helping me grow the myth.
So this is a continuation.
Yes, that's right.
Very cool. And yeah, there's so many different elements to the magazine. I know you've been doing some physical events recently as well, and there's talk that there might be one coming to Seattle, which I would love to get down to if that happens. When you talk me through a little bit of these, like how it's turning from online to offline and how that's felt as an evolution.
Yeah. Well, we at the Mits, we spend a lot of time up front just building our collective voice. And I'm careful saying collective voice because it's not like it's just my story, right? It's a culmination of stories from many women around the world sharing their modern midlife experience. Um, and so I bring that up because at this point we have hundreds of articles, right, about everything from perimenopause to divorce and dating in midlife and starting a company in your 40s or 50s. We've covered so much ground and territory. It just felt like a natural next step to take our community to the next level. And they were asking, we heard from a number of our readers saying, so are we going to meet? How are we going to meet in person someday? So we had our first in-person event in Chicago in October 2024, and it was fantastic. And so now we're thinking, how can we grow this beyond just that first event? So we're starting to think about other cities. And what we recently did informal survey to generate interest from our readers, like if you live in one of these six cities in the US, would you like to meet up? And it's been so fun to hear what people are saying, like from you. We heard from you too.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to see what we can grow, you know, grassroots style.
I love it. And that's like collaboration, like getting the interest before putting on the event. So you know that you've actually got some bums on seats before you've even got it off the ground. That's such a savvy approach. I love it. And how about in your own life? So you've got the magazine and that's attracting. I'm sure you've got readers that you know from your own community. Um, and how is the work of the midst like transferring like your knowledge? I imagine you're learning so much about this stage in women's life. Like, are you able to share that with like your best buddies and be like, wow, did you know that this was even a thing? How is that kind of crossing over into your personal life?
Yeah. Well, I think what's been most helpful about hearing other women's stories is that women who are contributing to us, to the midst, are so transparent and thoughtful. And it's delightfully surprising sometimes, like how much detail some of these women will share about their stories. And so that's encourages me to then be transparent and share some of this. Not everything is beautiful in midlife, right? There's challenges we have to overcome. And so it's encouraging me to share more too. So I would say in addition to doing the myths, I still work full time in tech. And the balance of, building a business while working full time is it's a lot. And I have to say, I just last week was interviewing for a full time job in tech, and we got into some really interesting territory where the employer was asking me how I could scale myself with AI. And I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on that. Um, Long story short, they ended up changing their initial, you know, saying that we're offering a full-time job and asking if I would take a contract position for a short period of time so that they could essentially experiment on me with me to see how I could scale myself with AI. I ultimately decided not to do it, but it that experience inspired me to basically figure out how can I scale my content production process with AI. So that's sort of a new challenge that I'm working on. And I think it's this whole figuring out how to scale yourself with AI or how to use AI is going to be a big topic for us, right? These very
Yes.
people. So I'm writing about
Yes.
that right now, and I'll be publishing that soon.
So interesting. And that's it. Like there's so two sides of it, like thinking about editorial being unique and human, versus leaning on the expertise of AI to proof our copy and ensure that it flows and make sure that the order of it. And that's sometimes what I do. Like I'll be like, don't change the copy, but just check on the flow and just make sure that it's in the right order for readers to like work their way through it. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting time. And that thought that you just shared of being asked how you would scale yourself and
Yeah,
how that thought has now gone, okay, how could I, for my own benefit, not necessarily for this big tech company that wants to extrapolate all of my knowledge and then just automate it, but how can we do this for ourselves, for our own lives?
exactly. Yeah, so I'm excited because a lot of my work in tech for the past, say, decade has been writing executive thought leadership for, big time tech founders, right? Essentially like ghostwriting and helping themselves tell their own stories. And you know how it is, I think so many women will resonate with this is that I have more than 20 years of experience doing what I do. So I have systems and processes by which I get things done efficiently, quickly. And I think there's parts of AI that can help me, expand that, right? Like help me to document like some of my processes. But still, I think some of the questions I ask of people I'm ghostwriting for they could be done by AI, but I still just think that there's a human factor that needs to be involved to help drive the scale, if you will, of AI.
Mm. And do
Mhm.
you want to give away all of that knowledge so readily that you've
Exactly.
accumulated for the last 20 years, or could that become another kind of business venture of its own?
Exactly. So that's yes, that's exactly what I'll be writing about coming up here.
Yeah, so good. I'm conscious that we are coming to time. Maybe let's just see one more question. So I know you have young children too. How do you balance all of these all of these balls that you are juggling in the air, and find time for everything?
Yes, I have twin 9-year-old girls. One has severe special needs and she needs a lot of special care. How do I balance it all? I work remotely. That has helped so much. I'm pretty regimented with my time. I have a daily, agenda for myself. And in addition to getting all of my work done, sort of my double day, and taking care of my family with my husband, I get a lot of sleep. I think that helps a lot. I honestly have to get at least 8.5 hours, if not 9 hours of sleep. So I'm always feel well rested, and try to eat healthy. I exercise. I think by having like a regular regimen for all of my health, to keep my health well, I think that helps me balance all the work that I have to do and to just make things go so much more efficiently.
Beautiful. Yes, scheduling, scheduling, scheduling.
Exactly.
Amy, it's been a pleasure, and I'm excited to contribute to the mids. So watch this space, and best of luck. And I really hope that one of those physical events does come near me soon. We will, of course, include links in the show notes, but maybe just share the URL of where people can find the magazine.
Sure. If you Google the Midst, spell MIDST, you'll see that we have both a website that's the-midst.com, and then we also have the Midst Substack, and that's our exclusive newsletter.